This is the White Coat Investor Podcast, Milestones to Millionaire, celebrating stories of success along the journey to financial freedom. Here is your host, Dr. Jim Dolly.
This is Milestones to Millionaire podcast number 14. Optometrist pays off $229,000 in 26 months. This podcast is sponsored by Bob Biani at drdisabilityquotes.com, a truly independent organization. drdisabilityquotes.com was founded on the basic principle of providing unbiased and conflict-free disability planning solutions to physicians, residents, and fellows nationwide. They shop your business with every major insurance carrier to create a true own occupation policy at best possible rates with all applicable discounting. If you need disability insurance, contact Bob at 973-771-9100 or info@drdisabilityquotes.com. This is the Milestones to Millionaire podcast. Here, this podcast is all about you and your accomplishments and using those financial milestones, those accomplishments, those successes to inspire other white coat investors to do the same. Well, I don't care what your accomplishment is. Maybe it's getting back to broke. Maybe it's getting net worth of $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million or becoming financially independent. Maybe it's paying off some debt, getting public service loan forgiveness or paying off your student loans or paying off a mortgage. Whatever it is, we want to celebrate it with you. We want to bring you on the podcast and use your story. So today we have a pretty unique story, an optometrist. Let's get him on the line. All right, now we have with us Justin Jackman. Justin, welcome to the White Coat Investor Podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here. It's an honor.
So you paid off your student loans this last year, I understand?
I did.
And how much were they?
Okay, so I ran all the numbers, and they're pretty, it's hard to remember, or it's hard to believe I paid it all off. But yeah, so basically, let's start out from the beginning. I graduated in 2013, and I had like $226,000. That's undergrad and optometry school. So I'm an optometrist. And for about 5 years, I was just paying the minimum, which was anywhere between $800 and at one point $200, and then they went up to like $1,800 a month. And so anyway, the final tally was after the last 26 months, I got real aggressive with it. And I paid off $229,000 in 26 months.
Wow, very impressive, very impressive. And what was your average income over that time period?
So I started out working. I'm in private practice. So started out making like a little over 100,000, and then I eventually bought in, started getting up to 150, then about 250. In the last couple of years, it's been over 350, approaching 400,000 a year.
Very impressive. Income as an optometrist. You own your own business, I assume.
Yes, I'm a partner, 50-50 partner.
Awesome. And is the ownership of your business new about that time period, or were you doing that the whole time?
No. So the first year I was just like an associate. And so I was making like 100. That's the thing with optometry that I wanted to bring up and kind of talk with other optometrists out there. I think optometrists and veterinarians are kind of the worst debt to income ratio you can have. In fact, I saw on your site just yesterday, I was looking at stuff, and the average optometrist was the worst. They were like almost 15% of their income, according to some graph you had on your site, went toward their student loans. So they're graduating. I was graduating $230,000 basically in debt. And the average optometrist makes between $100,000 and $150,000 a year. So that's why I really wanted to get into private practice. That was my goal. And because I knew that there was no way out of this without really increasing the income. And so once I bought in, that's when they really started making more money. But I ended up buying a quarter, and then I ended up buying another quarter later. So now we're 50-50 partners. But that's really what got the income up to over 300,000.
Awesome. So clearly the higher income had a lot to do with it.
Oh,
but
definitely.
You still don't pay off $226,000 in 2 years just from having that income. What happened? How did you do this? Something lit a fire in you and you changed some things in your life. Tell us what you did.
Well, I think the biggest thing is just knowledge, like learning. I listened to your podcast, I read your books. I've kind of gotten into the fire community. So I listened to, Choose FI and all these guys. And so I really started just looking at the numbers. One thing that I recommend for people is look at how much your interest is going up every day. So I was paying $900 a month just in interest every day. And so there, for a little bit there, when I was income-based repayment, I was only making $800 payments, but my interest is going up $900 a month. So I literally wasn't even paying all the interest on my loan. And so after 5 years, that's what really kind of made me so mad, pissed me off. You almost
This
look at
happens to a
these.
lot of people with credit card debt.
Oh yeah,
They're like, I've been
yeah,
paying on this for 5 years.
exactly. So that's what literally you start to think of, like, these lenders is like these monsters. You like hate them. You develop this like almost like a hatred for these people. Like, I hate you. That Dave Ramsey likes to say. Sally Mae moved in to your fourth bedroom or third bedroom or whatever. And I mean, literally after 5 years, I had paid, and I owed 3,000 more than what I had started with. 5 years later, after paying, I paid $40,000 in interest over that 5 year period. So $40,000 in interest paid, and I owed 3,000 more than when I started. And that just really just ate me alive. I was like, this is gone.
You
Especially
got
because, like I said,
mad.
then yeah, oh yeah, you get mad and you get aggressive, and you're like, look, I'm going to start throwing money. And that's the other thing is and I put this on my on that Facebook post you guys had on there, was you've got to start throwing like 10 grand at it. You can't like kind of pay 2 grand a month or something. I mean, the first 10 grand I paid, I looked on here and I threw a big chunk at it, and like all of it went to interest. I mean, literally, it's like principal zero, interest the entire 10 grand. And then it was like, holy smokes! So then a couple months later, I threw another 10 grand at it, and that time I think 2 of the 10 went to principal, and the other 8 went to interest because I would so back through all school, I had all that interest built up. So then
This was just
finally,
interest that hadn't capitalized that you were paying off.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So it just makes you sick when you throw $10,000 at something and it literally doesn't even touch the principal. So yeah, finally I paid another like 10 or 15 grand, and I think all of it at that point went to principal because I had made another payment that month. And so anyway, that all just went right into principal. And that's when you start really feeling good. You're like, hey, I'm on to something now. And then after that, boom, 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 you just started. Anytime I got extra money, it was throwing that. Now I still maxed out my 401ks and HSA, all that stuff. So at least the last, I think this will be my fourth year. I think I've maxed out my 401k. So I've still been able to do that, but on the side. Now, the other thing though, too, is as a private practice, we have to make private practice payments. So I pay close to $7,000 a month in private practice payments. So I'm paying that and taxes and all the student loans. So yeah, you still have to be kind of aggressive, even though you're making, between $300,000 and $400,000. You still have to pick and choose where your money's going.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you think? Was it harder than you expected when you really got into it 2 years ago? Or was it easier?
I think part of it was easier because I could see the progress. Those first. I think it's harder when you're making 100 grand because I was there, and you feel like, hey, I'm out of school. I'm making $100,000, and so you're like, I should have all this money. And then you hear the government. What made me mad was they send you this. So I was on the income based repayment, and once a year, you get this email out of nowhere that's like, hey, you need to submit your tax returns so that we can tell you how much you're going to owe us. And then you never know, like, okay, am I going to owe you 1,000 a month? Am I going to owe you 1,800 a month? Then they kind of threaten you. If you don't do this, you're going to owe us 2,500 a month because we're going to kick you back onto like a 10-year, payment plan. And so when you're making 100 grand and they're threatening you you're going to be paying 2,500 a month, that kind of gets your attention. And so I didn't like that feeling. And so I wanted out, but the thing is, I kind of messed up on. I wish. It's kind of funny because ironically, it did end up messing me up. But I waited really a long time to refinance because I really wanted to. I was like, I got all these benefits with these government loans. I just want to keep. It's almost like that safety thing where you feel like if something goes wrong, I can go back to these income based or payments or something. But so I kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and finally I made up my mind, and I was aggressively paying it down, paying it down, paying it down. So I finally refinanced, and now here we go. And I paid it off this year. Back in September is when I actually paid it off. But like, not this. Yeah, it was in September. Yeah. So it was during the pandemic. Well, then I think right around that same time, they got zero interest on their student loans and stuff. And I'm like, this is
Kick,
exactly why.
kick you while you're down, right? You try to do the
Exactly.
right thing and they punish you for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For years, I'm thinking, I got to refinance. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and refinance. Enough of this. Screw the benefits. I'm moving on. So I refinance, and then sure enough, boom, 0% interest for the. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
exactly.
But
But
no,
you're
it's
done
good to
now.
be.
How's it feel to be
Exactly.
done? How's it feel to
Feels awesome.
not owe Sally Mae a thing?
Oh yeah, it feels amazing. It just, like I said, you don't get those emails. Hey, by the way, your payment's going to go up to 2,500. That really just would eat at you. It would eat at me. So it feels amazing to just know that I don't have to worry about that.
Now,
My education is paid for.
Some people say you should carry a bunch of debt for a while so you can invest and earn more than your student loan interest. How do you feel about that advice?
I thought about that because I see that all the time too, and I think for me it was just the security, the knowledge that it doesn't matter what happens in the future. I don't know, Sally Mae, nothing. So I don't. If something happens to my income, I don't have to worry about making $2,000 payments, and I don't want to wait 20 years for the government to say, okay, your loans are forgiven. I mean, that's if that works out. I mean, I don't want to put all my trust into the government. So the thing about it too is I was thinking, if I would have put all that $200,000 into a taxable account, at the end of the day, it's like, well, now I got 200, or say I grew to 250, and then I owed 200. Was I willing to then cash that 250 out to pay the 200? Part of me would have been like, yeah, let's do it. And then part of me was like, no, you can't. Anyway, you just would end up, you can't, you got to make your mind up. You can't straddle the fence, I guess. And so for me, it was like, nope, I'd rather have the guaranteed return. I'm going to pay the sucker off and I'm going to move on with my life. So,
yeah. Congratulations on your success. This is really impressive. $226,000 in just a couple of years. And thanks for what you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all your help. You guys are very beneficial to all of us out there that don't know any of this stuff.
You're very welcome.
So I've learned way more after graduating than I ever did through 8 years of school.
Sounds like the typical situation. Well, thanks for coming on today.
No problem. Have a good day.
All right. I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from that story. Number one, you don't have to be a physician to pay off a significant amount of debt very quickly. Okay. Even allied health professional, an optometrist in this case, can do it. It takes some frugal living. It takes some, dedication, some focus, but it can be done. Right? I mean, when I think about the worst debt to income ratio professions out there, I think about veterinary medicine. I think about optometry, right? But you know what? Justin showed it can still be done. So, I mean, it's really impressive to me to be able to do this on that sort of an income. And it involves, in this case, some even hatred for lenders and to just be done and be sick of owing money to people. When you get like that and you know how to do it and you're dedicated and you're disciplined, well, you can pound out a lot of debt in a hurry, as you can see. This podcast was sponsored by Bob Baiani at drdisabilityquotes.com. They approach your desire to protect your earning capacity with care and compassion. From onset, their approach is one of friendliness, guidance, and professionalism. From your initial quote request to case submission and underwriting, they will help you navigate the approval process and service all your future options and rights for your policy. Request a quote today by calling 973-771-9100 or emailing info@drdisabilityquotes.com. Keep your head up, shoulders back. You've got this, and we can help. We'll see you next time on the Milestones to Millionaire podcast.
My dad, your host, Dr. Dolly, is a practicing emergency physician, blogger, author, and podcaster. He is not a licensed accountant, attorney, or financial advisor, so this podcast is for your entertainment and information only and should not be considered official, personalized financial advice.